So there are 3 rounds of interviews typically at FAANG companies for TPM roles. You have a round with a recruiter, a round that's a phone screen, that covers the first one that's covering behavioral and technical depth equally. And then the third round is typically a loop with 4 to 6 interviews. And that again covers a combination of behavioral and technical. And I'll get into more detail about what that means. So example questions that you might face in the recruiter call are really around your background and motivation. So they might just want you to simply walk them through your resume and answer those kind of motivating questions of, okay, why do you want to join Google and why now? Like, I see you're at Microsoft, you seem to be doing well there. Why the switch and why now? And the key to answering these, and we'll do some practice on this, you want to be, of course, genuine, but you don't want to sound superficial. So, for instance, a good thing to say would be, I think I've reached a ceiling of what I can learn in my company in this role, and I've explored potential internal transfer opportunities, and there aren't any available for me right now. And so in order to accelerate toward where I want to become, which is a people manager and as a TPM, now makes time for me to switch to an organization that could support my growth better. That's an example of a good response. It's genuine, it's professional. An example of a not good response would be like, I want to make more money. I see that tech is paying, some like big tech companies are paying 30% more now, so I want to get on that bandwagon. That might be true, and that might be relevant to you and your life. Like, finances are of course important to manage and to accelerate. You don't want that to be your only motivator that you express aloud during an interview. That's something you can keep closer, and at the time, if you are to get an offer, that you can express your expectations at the negotiating stage for the offer. I see a couple hands starting to be raised. I'm going to wait until slide 31 to take additional questions, so please just not jot down your questions, and you can reference back to this slide number. The phone screen starts, like I said, going into this twofold behavioral and technical depth area. So this kind of starts the trend of these like, tell me about a time when questions, for which you should in advance prepare your core stories that have shaped who you are in your work world, that have helped you accelerate those unfortunate, like what seemed in the moment to be like an unfortunate mistake, but you learned something from it and improved the next time. You want to think about metrics of what you've been able to deliver impact to. That can be intangible, so team morale impact. That can be quantifiable, so dollars raised or products sold, products shipped. So we'll be talking a lot more today about those stories and how you can start curating them for yourself. And then the third of the loop with 4 to 6 interviews is much like the phone screen, though if the phone screen really is over the phone and doesn't have a video component, the loop likely does. And I know that's true for Amazon. So these used to be in person, but now they're virtual, and you can expect 4 to 6 interviews. Again, this tell me about a time when or how would you or how have you in the past done XYZ. So let's get into some mini mocks here. So could I have someone volunteer to answer this question genuinely, if you could? So tell me why you're interested in joining, and let us know which company you're interested in joining. And I saw Mohammed's hand as the new hand raise.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel, for providing this opportunity. The reason I want to shift my job is I can go highest as much as I can as an individual contributor in the current organization. And in the space that they work in, they are very limited to claims and enrollment, which I have already been there for quite a while. So I'm looking for change in the domain area, as well as something that can provide more opportunities in the future.
Great. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to provide some initial feedback and then open up the floor for peer-to-peer feedback. Are you okay with receiving peer feedback, Mohammed?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, great. I just like to check. So things that went well, you were very articulate. I could clearly understand the words you were using and the pace of your delivery. I really liked how succinct your answer was. It was clear to me you'd thought through this before. And I know that I can come away with 2 bullet points. you want a change in content area, and you want more opportunities for growth. So for me, I take away the data that I'm looking for, and we didn't waste time. You were very succinct in your response. Any peer feedback that anyone would like to share with Mohammed? It can be a strength or a growth area.
I would like to share something.
Great.
So because I had gone through a mock interview and got slaughtered. So what I was told is this: FAANG companies are customer obsessed. So when you talk about why you are planning on joining, let's say Facebook, Amazon, or Google, I was virtually told that you better know the in and out of the company virtually from what the company's vision for the future is and how you as a potential employee can actually bring value to them and what you bring to the table. Unless they see that, and that too, it needs to be a passionate answer. Unless they see that passion to actually be customer centric and bring that to the table, apparently that's a negative. Even though your answer was great, I'm not saying that, but I was told that that's an answer that virtually everyone gives, and it's already, some of that is already in your resume. We know exactly what your background is, but you need to be much more customer focused and tell us as to, okay, why this company, what do you know about our company, and what can you bring to the table? That's what I was told. So I'm just passing on that information. Hopefully it'll be helpful.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that. Mohammed, yeah, so the way this works with peer-to-peer feedback, everyone, you'll have a chance to like listen in and also reflect or respond back. Is there anything you want to share back, Mohammed?
No, I think that was a great feedback. So I think my answer initially was focused more on the second part, which is why I am interested in the role, but bringing on a perspective and joining it with which company are you looking for and how do you fit into some principles they have, just like he mentioned, right? Customer obsession is the greatest one that Amazon wants. So, just putting in a few words will make my case more stronger and probably, stand out in terms of my response.
That's great. So I think we'll put this into practice right away. So I would like someone to volunteer to answer the question of, why this specific company. So that, and let us know in advance if it's Apple, Google, which FAANG company or non-FAANG company. And so we'll try to put some of the feedback we just heard into practice. Do we have a volunteer to answer the kind of more in-depth version of why this company? Joseph, I saw your hand first. So which company are you wanting to refer to?
Amazon.
Great. All right. So thanks for interviewing with us today, Joseph. Can you let us know why you're interested in joining Amazon?
Definitely. So I think Amazon is uniquely positioned as a technology and retail company, and it has got both, which is both dynamic and ever changing. And I am truly passionate about innovation and creativity, and I think I'll contribute to the success of the company.
Great. And if you don't mind, I'm going to ask a couple follow-up questions. So, I've heard you've mentioned the fast-moving pace and the ever-evolving essence of Amazon, and that you are excited to contribute. Is there a particular area that you want to contribute in, and why do you think you're a good fit for that area?
So I have, in my previous experience, worked in the implementation of CRM, customer relationship management applications, and I believe Amazon keeps the customer at the core of their operation. So with that background, I would be able to contribute to the ecosystem that Amazon has as servicing customers.
Great. Thanks, Joseph. So yeah, what I would say is on the strength side, again, you gave the broad kind of why Amazon, like you have some awareness of who Amazon is in the world and what we're doing to serve global customers. And then you've started to touch on the specific way you would contribute. The growth area, I would say, and it's similar to Madhusudan's feedback earlier, and that is to be very specific. So I think you want to try to like paint a visual picture as you're talking to the interviewer about something you've specifically done. So if you had said maybe a specific example of a customer relationship that you managed and a result that came out of it, so that I walk away and know, like, okay, you were able to, let's say, for instance, ship new software to 500 medical devices in 3 months when it had never been done in less than 1 year before. That tells me, like, okay, you move fast and you could keep up at Amazon. So here we're going to, for this type of question and throughout, we want to hear specifics. So just think about, like, trying to paint a visual picture for the interviewer. Do you have any response back, Joseph? And then we'll hear from peers.
Yes. So I can think of a previous project implementation, which was for commercial lending, and I can use the metrics there, which help them kind of boost their turnarounds from converting leads into actual loans. So I would use that metric. So I'll keep that in mind.
Oh, that's great. Thanks. Yeah, and so then the add-on for that is probably then where my mind as an interviewer is going is, okay, this transition from leads to loans. If you can take that one step further and say, like, how is that transferable at Amazon? So say you're interviewing for an Alexa team. You could say, like, I could really see myself getting excited to transition from, Echo devices sold to increasing, like, the number of times customers engage with the device every day. It's similar to work you've done in the past with this transitioning from leads to loans. You can see that transitioning well to Alexa device in terms of usage. So that takes it the extra mile. Other peer feedback?
If I may add,
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I might say is, especially when you're giving these responses, try to distinguish yourself from what others might say. And I hearken back to the shareholder notes, the letters that Jeff Bezos sends, how to be atypical, so that your response will resonate and it will stick as the interviewers are sort of debriefing and they're providing feedback. Something to sort of, maybe as a resource, just put in a sentence or two from the Amazon shareholder report or the letters to the shareholders that has come out from Jeff Bezos recently or currently Andy Jassy. 1 or 2 sentences, I think that would, and how that sort of ties in with the job description that you're interviewing for, I think that would make your response a killer response. Thank you.
Joseph?
Yes, I think that's good. Yeah, I know that there are these 14 leadership principles that I also have reviewed. So, but yeah, definitely will make use of one of these principles.
That'd be great. Yes, and the internal Amazon mascot, to a word, you said the word, like, you want, your advice, Siddharth, was to, like, distinguish from other candidates. Amazon's internal mascot is Pecky, which stands for peculiar. I think you used the word atypical, and Amazon really does value that we all, like, bring something peculiar or diverse to the table. So that's another anecdote or reference you could make. All right, we're going to move on to the next section, which is, again, a mini mock. So I know we haven't yet gone over the framework for answering the question. That's fine. So this is coming with little expectation at this point, but you'll see we'll be applying frameworks later. So if someone could offer to answer this question, tell me about a time when your team missed a deadline. And then the optional follow-ups are, how did you react and what was the result? But key to this is going to be make sure that you frame like the context that you were in, and do tell us the result that you were able to achieve. So I'm going to, just give me 1 sec. I'm going to clear the hands here and just see, make sure we're getting active hand raises. Who would like to answer this? I am seeing some hands, some of who we've heard from before. Yes. I'm just looking for a new hand to be raised, if that's possible. If not, Vishwant. But Wanda. Wanda.
Hey, this is Vishwanath. Yes.
Yeah, sorry. This one
I
not.
can tell one of my recent experiences where we're doing basically the claim adjudication engine, modernization of claim adjudication engine, and there is we have missed the timeline because there is an RFP is going on, and because of the so many stakeholders that are involved, especially from up above in the executive team, um, the decisions got delayed, and it actually impacted the overall project because there's no clear direction on which product to pick. The way obviously we missed the deadline to deliver the design. I'm not talking about the implementation because as an architect, I'm part of the enterprise architecture services, and my team also owns the design, which means I myself and my peer, we both own the design and the delivery of the design. So that's the situation. The way we have addressed that is, as soon as we came to know that we may potentially miss the target, we defined the baseline. Okay, if we go with a certain baseline functionality, so no matter whatever is the final decision, we still can build on top of this baseline functionality, which means whichever product that they pick, there's a certain baseline architecture that need to be there that works, that is required by both products. And we were able to, we basically worked on that aspect. And also we reprioritized exactly what else we can do. Obviously, there's a whole lot of other functionality that need to be done. And the end result is, obviously, we missed the target, but we have delivered a design, the baseline architecture, with which the developers can start the other POCs and implementation planning. But when like the actual decision happened after a sprint, which means 3 weeks after the actual deadline. When finally we decided to go with the product, it took one more sprint for us to actually put that into the plan and deliver the design. So we were not able to completely eliminate the risk, even though we know that, and it is not in our control. By delivering the baseline functionality and also anticipating all the dependencies with both products, we were able to mitigate the future risk, and we were able to deliver the solution in very quickly after we got the decision on the product.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so I pretty much handwrite word for word what everybody says so I can review and give feedback. So this was a question about missing a deadline, and I did hear generally that the deadline was missed, and I think it got accomplished 3 weeks plus 1 sprint later. Not exactly sure what that timeline is. So I think a strength is that you stayed on target in answering you gave a relevant example about a missed deadline. And you did mention like some of the processes and tools that or like TPM tools that came into play in terms of mitigating dependency or mitigating risks, identifying dependency, weighing alternatives, this product or that product. I'd say the growth area is like, I'm not walking away yet with a clear picture of like the specific project and who your customers were. And anytime there's a timeline question, it would be helpful to be specific about the time duration you had to complete the project. You can state it in terms of days, weeks, months, but to be specific. So if you had 3 months to complete a project and you delivered it in 3 months and 2 weeks, we experienced a 2-week delay, and that caused this impact to customers. It depends on what the delivery was, but you want to quantify the impact on customers. Maybe That, yeah, I don't have a quick on the spot example for like that quantification as it relates to this, but I think that would probably be my largest, feedback is being more specific. Each time you say something like there wasn't clear direction on what product to pick, and that we reviewed and reprioritized, it would be good to be able to hear an example of what specifically you were doing. And then always at the end, even if you're not asked the question of what did you learn, what would you do differently next time, especially when there's like a missed deadline, or if there is a lesson clearly to have been learned, to go ahead and express that. So that's what I would say is my feedback. Do you have any response to any of that?
Oh, that's very nice that you said that, because I think I had in the previous class also, I'm more worried about the time. And I was internally I was racing to complete what I'm trying to say, not try to stretch the story. But I think I need to get myself more disciplined on. I think some in the last slide they said if you spend 3 minutes time, that's a good one. I think I had to practice more there to fit enough details at the same time, not to be too verbose. I think I had to practice that. Thank you.
Okay. I like that. I like that this is like what you just expressed is that you have been making progress on feedback you've been receiving, and you see a path toward like another way you can step toward where you want to go in terms of prep for interviews. Any peer feedback? Oh, you're welcome. Any peer feedback for Vishwanath? Vishwanath.
Vishwanath. So I think you have covered most of it. Vishwa, I think the one thing that I personally experienced in the interview as well, right? You said we, I think you referred you and your peer. I think instead if you rephrase it as I worked with my peer to solve, I think that would be more perfect, because I think they were questioning me as in why it is a we, right? So I think we have talked about this earlier in the other sessions as well. I saw that you couple of times mentioned as a we. Maybe you can say I worked with your peer or so on.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for the feedback. Thanks. Sure.
And if I may add, this is Siddharth,
Yes.
and I think this is a great example. I think I know Daniel, you sort of shared, what was the impact on the customer, but maybe some metrics, because people remember numbers, they don't remember the stories as much. And especially, so anything, hey, we had spent X amount of X million dollars, and because of this delay, we had an cost overrun of 500K. I'm making some numbers up. And this is how I tried to sort of salvage the situation. And these are the things that I did, 1, 2, 3. I think having that specificity, I think would be once again, I'm trying to help you to be, come up with a killer response. And I think having some numbers and having some, I did these 3 things, 1, 2, 3, and this was the consequences for the customer, as Daniel added. And this is what I learned from this whole experience.
Yes, I think
that's very nice. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes.
No, I'm in the same boat actually. I mean, just FYI, I actually have a full loop interview coming up on Tuesday, and it's for a senior manager role at Amazon. So I totally empathize with you and everybody on this call as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, great. We're going to do this one more time for a mock question for the loop. And then I just want to touch on something, Siddharth, you said about, yes, using numbers, and that's going to tie into some of the structures that we'll be recommending in the second hour today. All right, we'll do this mini mock and then take questions and then do our activity. All right, so would someone like to volunteer for answering this question of how would you prepare a program for expanding? Actually, we're going to not do this one. This one's a bit complex. We're going to save time and rather use the time we would spend now on practicing once we have the formats explained. So the interview format, the coverage across FAANG companies. So this top row is what is common across all the FAANG companies. And then each of the rows following is what is additionally distinguishing about interviewing at Meta, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and unfortunately, Google doesn't have anything that's super distinguishing, nor do they publish interview guides, at least that I was able to find. And so thus I didn't link one here. So across the board, you're going to be probed about program management, architecture, system design. Again, that will be specific to the company and the specific team you're applying for. Leadership, adaptability, collaboration, knowing when to say I versus we, but making sure to say both in your answers. The interview loop will consist of a recruiter, a hiring manager, TPMs, and engineers and scientists, likely. And my advice across the board here is once you know which company you're applying for, go ahead and book a mock interview with one of us, hopefully at the company you're applying for. So we don't have full coverage, so we'll do the best we can to support you as our team is growing. What's distinguishing about meta interviews is this idea of program sense. So they use this phrase to mean your ability to have influence on peers, those who are at lower levels and those who are at higher levels. So leading with and without the title, but being able to showcase that influence. Being able to identify and track dependencies, simplifying complexity, and then also defining and executing on a strategy. That's how that's how they define program sense. And there's more on that in the specific Meta published interview guide that I've linked. The interview loop at Meta will likely also include product managers. They work, hand in hand with program managers, and I touched a bit on the differences earlier. At Apple, just as Meta has this kind of unique take on program sense, Apple has specific expectations around core skills, and we'll also add some leadership team members to the interview loop. So think 1 to 2 to 3 levels higher than the role you're interviewing for will be part of the assessment loop. And then at Amazon, a lot of the questions are based on some of our 16 leadership principles. And if you're not familiar yet with leadership principles, I've put in 3 examples. Think big, bias for action, ownership. And each of those comes with a description that's meant to be a tenet to guide the work we do. Then we add in product managers, leadership, and then this kind of third-party unbiased bar raiser. So someone who has been vetted and passed a lot of training with regard to hosting interviews. This person is not on the team you're interviewing for. They're likely not in the job function you're interviewing for, but they are the person who's hosting the pre and post interview debriefs with all of our internal interviewers and making sure that we are remaining as unbiased as possible in our interview assessments. And then Netflix IK actually has a question guide posted, so I've linked that in this slide that you should be able to click on through the PDF. So it's on this slide that I would like to take questions, and I know we're a little past time, so we'll proceed to activity, this like combo activity break. Any questions on the content we just covered around interview format and what to expect from a FAANG interview? Madhusudan, I see that your hand is raised.
Yeah,
I have a question.
I was actually wanting to answer the mock question, but that's okay. I had a question.
Got it.
So let's say I've had more than a decade worth of experience in the leadership side as a TPM and in a leadership for more than 15 years. And I've also been in the Oracle technologies, Oracle EBS side and all that. But let's say you have an example of something that you did that will actually, that was not recently, okay, let's say, but it is very relevant to a question that's been asked. So how do you meander through that? In the sense, you don't really refer to something that happened a decade ago. You just say that recently in a project, let's say I was leading a program and within the program so-and-so thing happened, and then use the star format to answer the question and just leave it at that. Or how do you handle those kind of questions? This is one of my doubts.
Okay, got it. So your question is, let's say that the top of mind example story you want to reference is 10 years ago.
Yes.
Should you indicate that it is so long ago or not?
Mm-hmm.
I would be upfront and transparent with the interviewer because hopefully you're giving enough details in your response that it's going to be clear which company you were working for and what project you were doing. So I would say you could even say out loud to the interviewer, and this has happened whenever I've been leading interviews, you can say, you know, I have, I think, a really great example from 10 years ago, and probably a less on the spot fitting example from more recent, from like within the last year. Do you have a preference as to which I share, or like, do you think we have time for both?
Okay. Thank you so much.
So I would be transparent and leave it up to the interviewer.
Okay. Makes sense.
For their
Thank you.
style. You're welcome. We'll take one more question and then proceed to our activity/break.
Yeah.
Vishali.
So this is first of all, the comment first. I absolutely love this this particular table. I think super helpful. This one is. A question I have is about the interview loop. So
yes,
is this something where one should focus more? I mean, how to interpret that interview loop column?
Oh, the interview loop is just to say like which role types are going to be interviewing you. So what I recommend to everybody and what I personally do before I'm interviewing is I find out from the recruiter who I'm going to be interviewing with. I look them up on LinkedIn and I make myself a slide profile. I spend probably like 20 to 30 minutes researching each person I'm interviewing with ahead of the real interview. So I get a sense of who they are. Maybe they've published articles. Maybe they have like a big online presence or are on the side also a professor. I like to find out as much as I can that's like publicly available. And then I come up with my questions that I'm going to ask each interviewer and make them hopefully of interest to their interests, if that makes sense. So for instance, when I interviewed at Amazon, the director of my team, he was previously a CEO and he's really well known in the machine learning space. I hadn't previously been in the machine learning space, so it was good that I did research because I got to like know who he is and, you know, approach him with questions about ML, read one of his papers in advance. So this interview loop is really to say, get to know who's interviewing you, and these are the role types you can expect on your interview loop. And the loop just means the last round where you have 4 to 6 interviews likely on the same day. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you provided some really good pointers and also the preparation tips. Just one follow-up there. What is bar raiser in Amazon?
Yeah, I spoke about that a little bit earlier. Bar raiser just is what we call a person who's added into every single interview loop, who is not on the team for the role you're interviewing for the role you're interviewing. So the person who was a bar raiser whenever I interviewed at Amazon, he was actually on the finance team, and he was some kind of like data analyst. So he's not a TPM. He's not on the team I was interviewing for, but he is experienced in the Amazon interview process and make sure that the process is followed and that the candidate is best represented. So that's what a bar raiser is at Amazon.
And how does that help to company or to the candidate?
Well, it helps the candidate because bar raisers are internally keeping the process consistent. So the bar raiser is involved in every single, say there's like an open job rec for the specific like L6 TPM on my team. The exact same bar raiser will be interviewing every single candidate for that role. So you're going to have a consistent thread of someone not on the team interviewing the entirety of the candidates for that role. So that's one example of how it's helpful. And it also ensures consistent process from team to team. You know, we have over 1.5 million employees at Amazon. So you could see how one team could develop their own version of doing interviews while the bar raisers keep it consistent.
Want to become a software engineer at Google? You can, like thousands of our students. You just need to learn from those who've already cleared FAANG interviews. At Interview Kickstart, our interview prep courses are developed and taught live by 150 plus instructors from Tier 1 companies like Google and Facebook. Our courses are tailored to help you crack software engineering domain interviews, including back-end, full stack, machine learning, embedded systems, data science, and more. To learn more, book your free webinar slot today